Welcome to the HarshBros show. I am your younger HarshBro, Noah, also known as Giga Goji. And with me, go ahead and introduce yourself.
This is the older HarshBro Cam.
All right, today's episode, the inaugural episode of the HarshBros show, this is going to be a wrestling podcast. So if you tuned in thinking something different, you might want to go ahead and tune away, or just go ahead and stay here. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have listeners no matter what. But today's episode, the inaugural episode, the main topic is going to be about monsters in wrestling. We're going to talk about Undertaker, Kane, and then also their championship qualities, maybe like
What
Cam, you wanna-
defined them?
Right. So, we're going to start off this episode talking about the Wednesday Night Wars. We're going to talk about AEW, and then we're going to talk a little bit about NXT. I'll hand Cam the NXT baton when it comes to that. So, AEW, we're recording this June 25th, so the Thursday after Wednesday, after the 24th.
Like these two major promotions went at it on TV. Right.
So, we started off Dynamite on Wednesday with Wardlow versus Luchasaurus in the Lumberjack match. And that match, I think, starting with that, I don't know, everything else after that kind of just felt, here or there. I think that match really should have been the main event of the program, but, I mean, this match was absolutely phenomenal. You had two just beefy boys in the ring going at it, and then you had the segments where MJF would interfere, and then like the Jurassic Express would interfere. Can we talk about Luchasaurus's like shooting star press off of the stage?
I've been watching that man since Lucha Underground, since it's been on LA Network, and that man can do so many flips for being how tall he is.
It's insane.
How much he
It's
weighs.
really impressive.
For being what would have been called a Vince McMahon guy.
Right.
He would have been phenomenal. I mean, in WWE, but we're so happy he's in AEW at this point.
Right. We're gonna get into WWE and AEW. I mean, we're pretty much AEW fanboys at this point. So if you were a diehard WWE and hate AEW, this might not be the podcast for you. Just an FYI.
Just throwing it out there.
Right. But yeah, Luchasaurus, man, what an in-ring performer. What an absolute beast. And so is Wardlow. I didn't have too many expectations going into this match. I thought it was just going to be beef versus beef, but both athletes were very, very good, I think. Wardlow had a very impressive showing, go ahead.
So, just kind of clarify on that. I mean, Wardlow, for being not a veteran in the ring, for being a guy who's only been wrestling, I think, quote me if I'm wrong, for probably 3 years, I think.
If that, yeah.
Hasn't really made any big television appearances or anything like that. He's very, very good in the ring. He reminds me a lot of a younger Sid Vicious.
Really?
But, I mean, I would say he's a younger Sid Vicious because the way he portrays himself in the ring gives you that monster feel.
Right, yeah.
Just glad he's not on the mic because you have MJF as his mouthpiece. But
right, exactly.
For him just to be in the ring against Luchasaurus, two big guys from AEW, it was a good sight to see. I thought maybe it was going to be a count out, but we did see towards the end of that match Luchasaurus with the was it Luchasaurus with the W?
No, it was Wardlow.
No,
Wardlow
with the W.
Yeah, because Wardlow, while MJF was distracting the referee, hit Luchasaurus with a low blow, and this is where I quote you having said, when we watched this together, "Do Sauruses have balls?"
You built this man to be a Luchasaurus, and he gets.
Do Sauruses have balls? That could be an entirely different podcast question. We could go on an entire different episode on do Sauruses have balls? But Wardlow hit Luchasaurus with a low blow and then hit him with the F10 for the win, and that was Kind of an expected finish in my eyes. I mean, I didn't expect a clean victory from Wardlow. Had it been clean, it would have really, I think, would have damaged Luchasaurus a little bit. So, I mean, this was probably the best outcome, I think, out of this match.
I think this really does kind of build that feud between what we've been seeing with MJF and Jungle Boy. Towards the end of that match, you did see it with the whole Jurassic Express versus Wardlow and MJF. That F10 that Wardlow did on Luchasaurus is phenomenal.
I love the
that
F10.
move.
I don't know why. It's like, it's very impressive to me.
And to do it on a man like Luchasaurus is
Yeah.
a sight to see. I think I did mention last night too. I would like to see Wardlow, if possible, against Brock Lesnar, but it
Dream
would never
booking
happen.
here, yeah. I mean,
But that would be a sight to see. But other than that, yeah, that match. I mean, not a lot of. It's definitely one that is for a new fan of wrestling. To watch that match would be a good sight to see because you had athleticism, you had high flying in there, you had the two big men fighting back and forth, not backing down from one another. It was a very good fight to open up the show.
Right. And now for Fyter Fest for night one, we have MJF and Wardlow versus Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. I'm assuming Marco Stunt will be in their corner, as always. But that seems to be, for night one, that's going to be a pretty decent match, I think. Off next was Sheeta versus Nameless Jobber. I mean, if you could bring up the name, I have no idea who this woman
Red
was.
Velvet was the person who was
Red
facing
Velvet?
Cheetah.
Was
yeah,
it? Okay.
Red Velvet has been an AEW Dark when they had this whole COVID-19 thing going on.
Right.
She was found in Georgia when they were doing a bunch of those tapings in Georgia. She's pretty good in the ring, but of course Cheetah being the knockouts champ. Wow. AEW Women's Champ.
That's an entirely different promotion, yeah.
Yeah, that's TNA. But hey, so Sheeta being the Women's Champ, squashing Red Velvet, and just made sense.
Absolutely.
And then
yeah.
You had that build between her and Penelope Ford during the match. Penelope Ford is another lady who is going to be facing Sheeta at Fyter Fest coming up, and I do believe we're going to go in details with Fyter Fest and our predictions later on down the road.
Absolutely.
But this feud between Penelope Ford and Sheeta is a good one for the women's division of AEW.
Right.
I feel like Penelope has a lot to give to the women's division. I've liked Penelope ever since she was in CZW with Janela. She brings a lot of that heel aspect that you've missed from wrestling. Being in the manager role with her and Kip Sabian, just kind of that heel.
It's classic. I mean, yeah,
right.
It's basically like her and Kip Sabian is like your Andrade and Zelina Vega. It's a classic, very talented, light heavyweight competitor with a very, very, very heel woman manager. It's a classic. It's a tale as old as time. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a formula that it'll continue to work back then, it'll continue to work now, kind of thing. Hikaru Shida and Penelope Ford kind of got into a brawl before and after the match. So that's just some go-away heat leading into Fyter Fest Night 1. Hikaru Shida versus Penelope Ford for the Women's Championship. The next thing I have is Cody and Jake Hager press conference. Kind of interesting how it was set up, obviously pre-recorded, because QT Marshall was there. And even though what the match for Dynamite was supposed to be, I think it was FTR versus Natural Nightmares, QT Marshall had to pull out because he suspected he was in contact with someone with COVID. But yeah, obviously this was pre-recorded. As QT was there with Allie and Dustin. It was a one-sided press conference. Jake Hager didn't even show up until the very end of the press conference. Arn had good things to say. Cody had good things to say. And then towards the end, Jake Hager came in. They didn't really have a war of words. They just kind of looked at each other like the typical UFC, MMA, like before, like that press conference kind of thing, right? Before a big fight, then Jake Hager pushed his fist up against Cody's face. I thought that was pretty good. That was a good way to get heat. And then Jake Hager's wife splashed some water on Cody, and that was pretty much it. Dustin just clamoring, "Get her off the stage! Get her off the stage!" I thought it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny, but yeah, Cody and Hager for the TNT Championship, Fighter Fest. There's no way Cody doesn't win this, right? I mean, like, let's be.
Right. This whole thing is this build up to this match. I've been off and on with the fence with Jake Hager and his character. I enjoy who he is. I mix emotions with Jake Hager, but with Cody being the TNT champion, there's no other better person to be the TNT champion, the inaugural TNT champion. I hope that this match goes long, and I hope they tell a good story. So far, the story's been okay. I would personally say that the AEW Women's Championship match has a bigger storyline than this match. But I don't know. I've got mixed emotions when it comes to this match, and I hope I'm wrong. I feel like it's gonna be a bust during the Fighter Fest, and I hope I'm wrong, like I said. But Jake Hager,
you don't want to be right about this kind of thing. It's like, I want Cody and Hager to have a good match, but like with Hager and Mox's match, I was bored to death. So it's like I'm really hoping it doesn't go as long as that match, and I don't know.
I mean,
Cody's a good in-ring performer. He tells a good story in the ring. I don't know.
And just seeing some of the reports, like I'm kind of, as we're talking, I'm looking at like Bleacher Report, Wrestling Observer, some of these reports for this press conference, and seeing what they say. A lot of them are giving this like a C+ rating.
It's really average. Yeah.
Yeah, they're thinking going into the Fighter Fest, it wasn't really good build up. They thought maybe there'd be a better like promo ambush where Cody's in the ring doing a thing, and Hager coming out and just blasting Cody. But I don't know. It's a very solid press conference. But I don't know. Going into this, I feel like it's not really the main topic, which is good. It's just going to be kind of a mediocre match.
Yeah, it's going to be there. I think Cody's going to retain, but we'll save predictions and everything for another podcast. Probably the Go Home podcast before Fighter Fest and the Great American Bash. Which we'll just host all of our predictions for each match of night 1 and potentially night 2. So the next thing I have is the Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela gas station bit. I thought that was it was pretty good, I think.
Best thing.
It's such a weird pairing, but it somehow makes sense. I can't wrap my finger around it, but I know it's money. I know it's good. Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela, it's weird, but it works. The gas station bit, Sonny Kiss was getting basically just harassed by a group of thugs, it seemed like, and then Joey Janela coming out of the gas station convenience store with heart sunglasses and some snacks. And just they have a gas station brawl. It was pretty interesting. Kind of solidified them being a team instead of just like oh, Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela are together as a team. They kind of built a little bit of a story as to why a little bit. Just having them get into this brawl and then kind of like strengthens their bond a little bit. But to no avail, they would lose against Mr. Brody Lee and Boom Boom, Colt Cabana.
And for anyone who is a big wrestling fan, I'm sure you all know, Brody Lee is Luke Harper from the Wyatt family. He left the WWE and he moved on to greener pastures, is what you want to call it. And moved to
absolutely.
AEW. And he's been on a tirade ever since he joined the stable called Dark Order. He's what they call the Exalted One. He is the leader of that cult-like stable. He's been talking to Colt Cabana for the past few weeks. Colt's been on a losing streak, wanting to get better and wanting to get a W in AEW.
And they
so
did.
he,
I mean,
but yeah,
Brody and Colt
last night they did.
against. I mean, like Dark Order. What was it? Silver and Anderson. Is that what their name is?
Silver and yeah.
Okay, Silver and Anderson were out there, kind of as like their managers, and they helped.
Oh my bad, no, it's Reynolds and Silver.
Reynolds and Silver. That's right. They were out there, and they helped Colt and Mr. Brody Lee pick up a victory. And then afterwards, after this match, later down in the card, they had a little segment backstage. Brody was talking to Colt, saying like, "Oh, yeah, it felt like it did not feel good to get a win." Basically, just kind of like edging it more towards, is Colt Cabana gonna join the Dark Order? I don't think so, but it's a nice little tease. And probably on night 2, I think we're probably gonna see Colt Cabana versus Brody Lee. Honestly, that's my little
and
prediction.
You have they're facing SCU, right?
They were facing. Are they facing SCU? Yeah, they're facing SCU in the night.
Fighter Fest to build up a match because the contract that Colt Cabana signed apparently was another match doing them because I think it's Stu Grayson, Brody Lee, and Colt Cabana against SCU on Fighter Fest. Which them winning against Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela kind of helped solidify them as a good tag team. Them going up against SCU for Fighter Fest, I can see some tension between SCU happening if they lose to Brody Lee and Colt Cabana. But that would be for another podcast later on down the road. But I think so far this storyline is a pretty good storyline for AEW with Colt Cabana.
Yeah. Speaking of SCU, a segue right into SCU versus FTR. FTR picked up the victory here using their Goodnight Express. No longer Shatter Machine. Very, very sad. I wish they could have used Shatter Machine. It's such a good name for a finisher. But Goodnight Express.
Right.
They had a pretty decent match back and forth. It was a pretty above average tag team match, as you'll get with SCU and FTR. I mean, they're always going to do great work. Then after the match, Butcher and Blade had commandeered FTR's truck, in which during this little banter back and forth, Lucha Bros returned.
My tag team, let me tell you.
Lucha Bros came back and were standing in the ring with FTR. And Butcher and Blade issued a challenge in which it'll be an 8-man tag match with Butcher and Blade and the Lucha Brothers versus FTR and the Young Bucks for Fyter Fest. And wow. I think that's going to be saved for night 2, I'm pretty sure.
I think so, yeah. This match between SCU and FTR was just a glimpse as to what AEW has for that tag team division.
And what a tag team division it is.
It is.
I can't really think of a bad team, per se. Like, you see some teams in WWE, it's just like the tag team division barely exists, to my mind, in WWE. But here, it's so important. I know, like, every single tag team in this division. So, yeah. This is going to be a good match. They're going to tear the house down. FTR and Young Bucks. That's just going to build to an eventual match between FTR and the Young Bucks. And I think they'll save that for either Full Gear or whatever the next pay-per-view will be. All out. Maybe they'll save it to them, or maybe they might not even save it till then. Maybe they'll wait till fans come back, so that way they can get what they deserve.
And I think that rivalry right there is going to be, it's going to steal the show. I think that's going to give Dave Meltzer a 7-star rating, if possible, because the Young Bucks and FTR has been building for years.
Absolutely.
Who's the best tag team in the wrestling industry? I can't wait to see that happen on TV, pay-per-view. This Dynamite match between SCU and FTR. I keep on coming back to it, but I'm sorry. But SCU, grew up watching Daniels and Kazarian and TNA.
Oh yeah.
They were phenomenal tag team, and just to kind of get this glimpse of a match between them and FTR, even though they're the elder couple, team in this matchup, just seeing them fight FTR was a good glimpse of the past. Still seeing Daniels at the age of 50, still doing what he does best. It was a sight to see, even though FTR picked up the win.
Yeah, it was very good. Next was John Cruz, poor guy, versus Brian Cage. And who can stop the path of Cage? My God, Brian Cage, every time I see him in the ring, he's actually terrifying. Like, he is an absolute machine. He deserves the accolade. He deserves that nickname, the Machine Brian Cage. Him and Taz as a duo is so good. It's money. I smell it. It's so good. Of course, Brian Cage with easy victory with Taz on commentary. It was a squash match. Poor John Cruz. Someone want to check in on John Cruz. That's sure he's okay after that suplex pile driver. Not that it was a dangerous looking one. It was just good.
The man could sell. You could tell at just Brian Cage is just an absolute machine. Watching him again and Lucha Underground, seeing him come up through the ranks, going from Lucha Underground to Mexico, back to States to be in Impact Wrestling. The dude is just an absolute machine. And of course, we were supposed to have John Moxley here that night. Unfortunately, he's been in contact with someone with COVID-19. So AEW, being the good promotion they are, told him just to stay home. And so we had Brian Cage fill in. And this was an excellent fill in. I feel it just brings more destruction on the match coming up at Final Fest between him and Moxley.
And we can talk like hours and hours about the difference between AEW and WWE, especially during this pandemic, and how they've handled it, like how both companies have been handling it and tackling it. AEW obviously going leaps and bounds above and beyond, WWE not doing that because they have a lot of their developmental talent actually being confirmed, like having cases. But we'll save that for a different episode. Next we had Matt Hardy versus Santana. Gonna be honest, halfway through this match, I left the room to go get something to eat. But from what I've seen so far, it's your typical, Matt Hardy and whoever match. Matt Hardy versus some member of the Inner Circle. It was supposed to be Sammy Guevara, right? But
yeah.
Those allegations of what he said about Sasha Banks, he's going through sensitivity training, and he has so far been suspended. No confirmed date on when he's going to be back, but hopefully soon. You hate to see it. It's something he said 4 years ago, I know, and it's still bad what he said. But what he said in his apology videos, he was a very different person 4 years ago. I can believe that, but said what was said, it's still wrong, but we'll save that for later. Who ended up getting the win? I'm assuming Matt Hardy, of course.
Matt Hardy did, and it was kind of a very cliche type win. He basically did like a roll-up victory. Santana thought he had the victory. He did his roll-up, but then Matt reversed into his, and that's how they won 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
This was kind of, to be honest with you too, this was kind of a lackluster match. I feel like Sammy versus Matt would have been an excellent main event spot. This was basically the main event of the show without, the confrontation at the end.
Right.
But, I mean, I feel like at this point NXT won this main event because, we talked about NXT a bit. But this match was just, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it at the beginning. Matt Hardy's a good character when he's up with someone who is also a good either gimmick or someone who is good in the ring. Santana's good in the ring with his partner Ortiz. Him as a singles competitor, I don't feel it. It's just very vague. I could have fell asleep during this match for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll have Nate on the podcast later, and Nate said to us, it's like, when was the last time you saw Santana and Ortiz in a tag team match?
It's been a while.
It's been so long, but I mean, we're gonna
On
get that at
television.
Fyter Fest. Private Party with Matt Hardy in their corner will face off against Santana and Ortiz for the first night of Fyter Fest. That'll be a decent match. It's been a while since Santana and Ortiz, Proud and Powerful, have been seen as a tag team. And Private Party, their last match was against the the Bucks and Matt, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah, they've been wrestling on Dark, them and Santana and Ortiz, but it's like you and Nate and Eric have said, you guys don't really watch Dark like I do. You guys kind of watch it, but it's a different feel, and when you just go up against local competitors as a tag team, you don't really get that experience on TV. So hopefully coming up at Fyter Fest, we get a good match between Proud and Powerful.
Yep. And to close the show, we had the confrontation between Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho. I was still making food at this time, so Cam, you want to talk a little bit about this here?
Yeah, so during the confrontation, you had Cassidy come out first, and then you had Jericho come out next. It was your typical banter between Jericho saying how he doesn't know how Orange Cassidy got over as a wrestler, and Cassidy didn't speak at all during this whole confrontation. Cassidy does his kicks. The wrestling fan supporters get behind it, and then Jericho throws something at Cassidy, and then Cassidy force at Jericho. It was your typical what we saw 2 weeks ahead of time. I mean, 2 weeks prior between him and Jericho. They brawled throughout the arena. I feel like this didn't need to be done. I feel like you could have had Cassidy speak or something. You could have had a match between Cassidy and I don't know, maybe Ortiz or something, but it could have been early on in the show. I just feel like this match coming up on Fyter Fest is going to be a good match. I just don't think you needed this spot a week prior.
Yeah, the face-off, you didn't need to build. They're already two super dynamic characters. This is one of these matches that doesn't really need the build. It's not a championship match. It's just a match. Again, already the build it's pretty funny. Just like the whole reason this is happening is because Orange Cassidy walked through an interview with Les Sex Gods and the Inner Circle.
But
I don't know. Yeah, it's not a match that really needs a huge build up. They didn't really need this spot towards the end. If anything, the match that needed it most was probably this Cody and Jake Hager. If anything, that should have been a face-off instead of a press conference kind of thing. Had there been a face-off in the ring with these two, I think it would have been a way better outcome. But so yeah, that was pretty much it for AEW Dynamite on TNT. Before we segue into NXT, let's talk a little bit about the ratings between both, and I have them pulled up right here from Forbes.com. The AEW Dynamite total viewership was at 633,000. I think down 18% from last week. And then NXT total viewership just absolutely squashed AEW Dynamite this week. NXT with 786,000 viewers.
Wow.
It's I mean, and I think like rightfully so in a way. Cam, you watched at least the highlights of NXT, so you know a little bit of what's going on over there. I knew the outcome of the main event, but other than that, go ahead and let's talk about NXT.
So we started off with NXT with apparently, like I was saying, I was mainly watching AEW at this point, but I do believe
we both were.
Damian Priest got something happened to him in his vehicle. I guess he got attacked by someone we don't know yet. So this segued into a match between him and Cameron Grimes. Both were just good competitors. It was a very technical fight. we all know how much I do care for Damian Priest, aka Punishment Martinez.
Yes, we do. That we know.
He's a very good competitor, one of his kind. He lost to Cameron Grimes in this matchup. You could tell that the injury was getting to him in this matchup. It was a solid match. Other than that, that's all I've got for that match coming up. It looks like they're building something between maybe Damian Priest and some unknown person who maybe attacked him. But I feel like NXT does this angle a lot. And just we saw it with Finn Balor. We saw it with Tommaso Ciampa.
And
We see it
the
now
Johnny
with
Gargano
Damian
thing.
Priest.
This
It's
mystery
just
attacker thing is getting kind of old.
but it's getting a little old. But I mean, with this, you saw it, and it was good. Yeah, do you have any thoughts on that, Noah?
I mean, it's they keep drawing to this well of stuff they've done before, and stuff that like WCW has done before. I remember Brian Alvarez talking on Wrestling Observer Live about this whole thing with what was it, Dexter Lumis in the crowd.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, he's there. I see him. And then everyone else is saying, no, he's not there. The camera would cut and he wouldn't be there. But then, like, towards the end, he was there. We, as the viewer, saw it, but the rest of the Undisputed Era say he wasn't there. So are we stupid? You know, like, Brian Alvarez talked about it, but like WCW did this. And it's just, why are you doing stuff that WCW had done when, you know, they lost to you? You know, it's like, you knew that WCW was not as great. You know, like their writing was pretty trash. So why take this? If anything from WCW, why take one of these moments? You know, it's so weird.
It is.
But yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
So next you had a non-title match, the NXT champion, which I this really bothers me. I know he lost his match and his mask in Mexico, but Lord, just take the wheel on this one. You had El Hail de la Fantasma, who I have enjoyed as a competitor in Impact Wrestling, now in NXT, now go by the name of Santos Escobar. It's a good fit for him. He's now surrounded by a bunch of other Latino-type wrestlers in the cruiserweight division.
Wasn't this the whole thing with like the kidnapping thing also with like Drake Maverick? Or was it those guys? Is that what you're talking about here? Like those are the guys that he's surrounding himself with?
Yep.
Yeah, that was a totally. That was also just very weird. But yeah, go on with Santos Escobar.
You had him beat Jake Atlas. It was a good match. It lasted quite some time. But you have him win the match. I'm still iffy with the cruiserweight division in NXT. Yeah. I feel like they have a good division right now. I know he lost his mask in Mexico, but just changing his name and everything just really just makes me salty. It just really just grinds my gears a little.
Well, but that's it was the same thing with Andrade. You know, like Andrade was a luchador. He was a masked. He was masked before he came into NXT. Then he came in as Andrade Cien Almas. It's a weird thing going on. It's like WWE feels like they have way too many masked luchadors. That they just have to like strip the mask in a way and just change their identity as a whole. And it feels like if you're at that point, why not just, you know, get rid of your masked luchadors who aren't doing anything? You know, you have Lucha House Party, you have Kalisto, Lince Dorado, and Grand Metalik. Is that right?
Yeah.
Are they still there? What are they doing? You know,
they're still on SmackDown doing what they do best. Just lucha.
They're doing the lucha thing, as Kalisto so eloquently put a few years ago. But yeah, this Pablo Escobar thing is a little out of my grasp and understanding. It's interesting.
The name Santos Escobar is a good name. I personally just feel like they just I don't know, watering down who Phantasma is as a wrestler. But we'll move on from that one. You have the women's division now. You had Dakota Kai and Raquel Rodriguez. Gonzalez, my bad. Raquel Gonzalez versus Kaden Carter and Casey Catanzaro. She's back. She was on American Ninja Warrior about a couple years ago. She just got back from a career-threatening injury, but she's back teaming with Kaden Carter now. I don't really have too much on the women's division other than Candice LeRae, but this match was just your typical women's NXT match. You had some good high spots, nothing really to report too much. You had Dakota Kai and her bodyguard winning this match.
Yeah. Apparently, next week, the Great American Bash, there will be a fatal four-way number one contenders match with Mia Yim, Tegan Knox, Candice LeRae, and Dakota Kai. A lot of people in this Twitter thread, yeah, it's gonna be pretty good. But a lot of people in this Twitter thread that I'm following are clamoring and wondering, where is Shotzi? Where is Shotzi in this mix?
Shotzi Blackheart is a good competitor. I guess I have to agree with them on that too, because they were kind of building her up there for a while. She's still getting brought up and she's still good, but they just kind of pushed her to the side right now. And I don't know, her gimmick is pretty cool. Coming down in a mini tank is kind of unique.
I think it's adorable. I think it's great.
So they have a good women's division. I'm glad that Charlotte Flair is now out of the picture again.
Thank goodness. We can save Charlotte right now, for another day.
Right now you have a good division. Next, you had another women's match. You had Rhea Ripley against Alexa. Rhea Ripley, of course, squashing Alexa at this match. Right now, I think they're just kind of building back up Rhea Ripley after losing to Charlotte Mania. Mm-hmm. Don't know why they had that happen, but it really took a toll on Rhea's character. And
I think so. I think it was super damaging to Rhea to basically get the golden shovel. In this case, I feel like Charlotte is becoming the John Cena of the women's division in a way.
I would agree.
Like that 2010s, late 2010s John Cena where he was burying everybody and everyone. I feel like that's what's happening right now with Charlotte. So especially to Rhea, like what happened to Rhea at WrestleMania, having Charlotte win. It was damaging to Rhea. And then now Io Shirai is the NXT Women's Champ. I feel like we could have just had a match at Mania, if anything. It was Io and Rhea. I think that would be like main card worthy, you know what I'm saying?
But yeah, that match was, like I said, squash match. Next match we had Dexter Lumis defeating Roderick Strong via countout. I didn't really see too much highlights on this match. What I'm thinking is Undisputed Era got somehow, and it was the cost, because I guess Dexter came out and did like spring off the top rope DDT type looking thing, and he hit all. It looked pretty sick and cool, but at this point, you're building up a feud between Dexter Lumis and Undisputed Era. I was never a big fan of Dexter Lumis, even when he was at TNA. He had that creep gimmick where he just kind of stalked anybody and everyone, and he kind of brought this gimmick over to NXT. I'm iffy with him as a character. He doesn't say much. He's like Orange Cassidy, but bigger, and it doesn't fit his character at all.
And apparently, sorry about the trains. There's not much I can do about that. But got some trains behind me going. But it appears for the Great American Bash, we'll have Dexter Lumis versus Roderick Strong in a strap match. So that'll be interesting.
Is it just me, and I'm just gonna say this, and I know we're bringing Nate and Eric a bit. But this is another match that was defined by Dusty Rhodes. The Great American Bash was also something that Dusty Rhodes did. course, Cody and Dustin Rhodes are over at AEW now. I feel like NXT is pulling anything out right now to kind of throw some shade at AEW.
Oh, it's definitely just counter program, and it's counter program, and just make cheap jabs, basically, you know.
Yeah, so that match is going to be interesting. We'll do, like we were saying, do a breakdown of both, I guess, later on in another podcast. Don't do too much about NXT, but we'll do it because a lot of people like to listen about NXT and what's been going. Next thing you have the main event, which I enjoyed so much. You had Johnny Gargano versus Finn Balor versus the North American champion Keith Lee.
This is pay-per-view level match right here. This is
for the title, and it was phenomenal.
And of course, Keith Lee coming away with a victory, right, with the Big Bang catastrophe on Balor. If I'm correct on that.
Yes, it was on Balor. What happened was they basically both fell on Johnny. Johnny was thrown out the ring, and then he hit that on Finn Balor, which kudos to Finn to having Keith Lee pin him, being the veteran that he is. It was a good
Finn Balor,
good solid match.
Yeah. So with that, because Keith Lee won this match, he will face Adam Cole in a winner-take-all on the first night of this Great American Bash thing. I'm pretty sure it's the first night. From what Regal said this past week, last week on NXT, it was that whoever wins this match, yesterday, this past NXT will face him the week after for the NXT Championship and North American Championship, winner take all. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but that's what we got for NXT.
Yep.
But yeah, that has been the Wednesday Night War recap. We're going to take a break here in a bit, and after the break, we're going to get into our main discussion of the podcast about monsters in wrestling, and when we get to that, we'll have our buddies Eric and Nate on the podcast as well, so stick around. Welcome back to the HarshBros show. With us now is the Nate-mare, Nate. And we also have Super Saiyan Swami Eric with us. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, guys.
What's up?
That's Nate. And Eric, you want to say something?
Hey.
Very high energy in the studio today.
It's 11:30 at night, man.
It is. It's the same day, but it's still Thursday, but it's 11:30 at night. This is like the only time that we're all free. So now that we're back, we are going to go on to the main discussion of this podcast episode, the inaugural episode of the HarshBros show, the wrestling podcast, Monsters in Wrestling. This kind of sparked up due to seeing Abaddon debut in AEW against Anna Jay, and she was just absolutely terrifying. I loved every second of it. So it kind of sparked some conversation between us four about monster characters with championships. So let's just have a little round table discussion. We could go about maybe half an hour here or so and just kind of talk.
So when we define a monster character, is it one that is a monster,
right? So
Abaddon,
Boogeyman, I guess the Fiend. You could kind of classify Undertaker and Kane in this as well. I mean,
what about big guys like Andre, Big Show, Vader?
No. This is more for the supernatural.
A supernatural element to it.
So
right. Having some sort of supernatural or kind of demon, like Demon
Kamala,
Finn Balor in a way, kind of, but
Kamala,
Kamala, Papa Shango,
Finn Balor,
kind of stuff, yeah. Having something
demon.
to do with supernatural and stuff.
Okay, not just giant men.
Right.
All right.
So, like, yeah, one thing that kind of like what brought this up is that Cam and I were talking, like, since Abaddon's here now, does she get the like the main event push? Kind of, does she get the would she look okay with the championship kind of thing? Like, where do we go with that? You know?
Yeah, I think there has to be some form of motivation for that character to want to be the champion of wrestling. That's where like where it almost gets like hokey, because it's like,
Right.
why is this creature also a professional wrestler?
Exactly.
So that's my thing is you have these supernatural beings, and it's to stay with the topic of Abaddon. Why is there a demon possessed woman, and why would she be interested in the title? Like, what
Right.
would motivate this demon? Out of all the things that they could be doing,
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna, 1, wrestle, and 2, go for the title.
Right. And it's like what brings us back to like the Fiend in Bray Wyatt. Why did Bray was like, I want this championship. The Fiend would really like this championship. You know?
Yeah, that's the one thing I haven't liked about Bray, is that we haven't they haven't dove into like what the Fiend is and what like, because I see it as like a split personality or something.
Right.
Like, normally he's this like Mr. Rogers character, and
Yeah.
then like there's like this dark side to him that's like evil, and he's like trying to like keep both sides happy.
Right. Yeah. I get you. Yeah, it's just Bray Wyatt, man.
See, with that, I think it's kind of interesting because with the split personality, it doesn't necessarily have to be the Fiend's motivation to go for the title so much as it would just be like the Mr. Rogers Bray wanting to go for the title.
Yeah, in that way, in that regard, you have a little bit of leeway as to like, oh, the Fiend wants to pursue the championship, but it's actually Bray Wyatt as the Fiend kind of thing.
Yeah, and they've kind of like hearkened on his like career in general as how he's changed. Like, they reference like his past as like the Fall of the Buzzards Bray Wyatt, or the Wyatt family Bray Wyatt. So where it's kind of like his motivations stem from that other character not coming to fruition like it should have been. Not to like get on a different topic.
Right. Yeah. I totally get it. It's just it's so interesting to me that like so it's like this the Fiend and Bray Wyatt dynamics is much different to me. I feel like it's its own entity, but I had to draw a comparison to it because it was just badly booked as like this demon character kind of thing, as the Fiend, as like and it's like, oh, I want the championship now. You know, it's like,
and
then he got it like just at a Saudi show, right? It was a Crown Jewel or something.
He beat Seth, and they were in the weird red light.
Yeah, God, the red lighting, fuck that. Oh my God.
Another compare, like, if you wanted to compare that with like the demon Finn Balor, it was like, I really liked how they did that, where it was like he needed to become like a more motivated, like more hungry like performer to like get that extra boost. It was like
that's a split personality kind of like working really well, where it's just like, oh, now he doesn't even do it, so it's like, what's the point?
I don't think Finn and the Demon King was like so much split as it was like two separate entities, so much as it was just him pulling that out of him and becoming it.
Right. It was like he channeled its power kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's
it be like Finn is one thing and the Demon King is another thing.
And it's like that's why I feel like the Fiend should have been. It should have been like this thing like where Bray Wyatt has like this well of power stored into, and like he uses the Fiend to like come out of his like little shell basically. It's okay to have this Mr. Rogers character. I think it's great. I think it's funny. For one, it's really entertaining. For two, it's just like I feel like you just need to bring in this like have this character really be not really so much as an alter ego. It's fine that way, but like it's really interesting to have it like this like do like this the Fiend is within you, like let me in kind of thing. You know, it's like he's always there.
Yeah.
He just needs to call on him, basically.
Yeah, the motivations just have to be like authentic for like these characters and like what they like seek out to do.
That's the thing. But with Abaddon, I don't feel like she should ever be on the mic ever. You know. Like,
has she ever spoken? I don't.
No, she screamed. I mean, she
I
yelled at
don't
Rick
think
Knox.
She needs a mouth. So that's another thing.
She doesn't need a mouthpiece, and she doesn't need to talk. I like the mystique. I like this character. It's you're like Abaddon. I feel like after watching the Taker doc, you know, brings the mystique back to wrestling, back to characters in wrestling.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, see, because that's the thing is back when Undertaker first debuted, that was before like the prevalence of the internet and before professional wrestling was really like brought out as, you know, this is, you know, predetermined. Nobody really knew what was going on, and when you had these supernatural characters come out, it felt authentic because people just didn't know any better. But nowadays, with the internet and you just being able to look up anything with the click of a button, a lot of characters they aren't really able to keep that mystique because the kayfabe isn't there.
Yeah, I think like the fan I think has to be willing to to believe like, oh, this is what this person can do.
Yeah,
like
you've got to suspend your belief a little bit.
Like, oh, the Undertaker can like use lightning. All this like that's just what he does. Like he disappears from a casket and then reappears like behind you. Like that's what he does.
Right, and like as an audience member, you have to be able to like suspend disbelief. You know, it's like that's what I mean. For me, as an actor and like in theater, like that's like your whole thing. Your audience
like,
has to be able
I don't have a problem with the character. It's the motivation of the character is what it is for me. Like why does this person want to be the world champion?
Right, it goes into
like you can't just say, you know, believe this. You've gotta give a reason to believe.
Right, like make me believe it. Don't just tell me to. You give me a reason. Yeah. So there's Abaddon. We've talked about the Fiend and like kind of Demon King Finn Balor. You know, like the demon.
Would Matt Hardy would the broken Matt Hardy character be considered a monster?
I don't really think so. No.
But it's
the supernatural
category. That's what I'm thinking because like he's
different.
Okay.
3,000-year-old entity.
He is Damascus.
That's pretty supernatural.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
No, I just want to point out
a monster per se, but it's definitely in that like borderline magical category, like him, and then Chris Statlander being an alien.
Oh, I didn't even think of her.
Yeah, Chris Statlander and the alien thing, which JR just cannot bite into for a second.
But like with her, they don't really like talk about anything other than her just being from
the Andromeda Galaxy.
Like they don't say like she's like made of like she's not like extra strong or whatever. Like she's lost matches. Like.
Well, they did say that Earth's gravity affects her differently. You know? Like,
it's mostly been just when Jericho has been guest commentating. He kind of builds it up as her having alien strength and alien powers, and
I mean, I think
it's cool.
Excalibur definitely plays it up way better than Shivani or
oh for sure.
Evo.
Chris Statlander, from the Andromeda Galaxy.
And JR's just like, yep.
Alien? No, that's a woman. That's a woman in the room. That's that good old JR.
It's like, JR, you spent 20 years talking about this undead man that's like a mortician. Like,
and then you also talked about his like kind of undead burnt brother.
That's gotta be
Kane.
Like, like we're gonna sell that, but okay, this woman wants to be an alien, and we're gonna pretend like that's too much.
Right.
I think it's an interesting dynamic it brings because I really think that's just kind of representative of the fans as a whole. Is there are obviously going to be some people that look at a person like Abaddon and just think that's not a demon,
Right.
Like that's ridiculous to assume that. And then there are going to be other people who are like, oh, holy shit, like that is a biblical demon. Like we
that is a biblical demon.
I want the librarians to try to do an exorcist on Abaddon.
I would be down.
I would actually be so down. Like Lena Bates and her have a match on either Dark or Dynamite, whatever. And she just pulls out she pulls out a Bible and just tries to...
No, they just pull out a copy of The Exorcist. They don't even try to.
They don't even try. Yeah.
They literally just try to go from the book The Exorcist.
Or like that Christopher Daniels character on the BTE episode that tried to exorcise Cody.
Yeah.
That would be this is dream booking here, but yeah.
I think that'd be a great beginner feud for Abaddon, and just we need more
and
Peter
the
Avalon
Bates
on.
really, because
I think it would give something to librarians to do, because frankly they don't do a lot.
And then just think of them like bringing in Brandon Cutler and him just like talking about Dungeons and Dragons. And like,
like, oh, this is a Demogorgon.
This has nothing to do with it.
I know their base HP and their armor class. You cannot beat this bitch.
Okay, back to the monsters, I guess. We really went off there.
I honestly think, I'm just gonna point this out though, and you guys can just whatever, but the Boogeyman should have had the United States Championship at least once in his. I'm not gonna lie. You would
has he ever held a title?
No,
not even ECW. No, not even.
Well, Eugene was a thing. You had Eugene. You had all these different gimmicks going on.
Are you saying the Eugene character was a supernatural character?
No.
I'm saying as anything in WWE,
he's supernaturally gifted.
Had a bunch of gimmicks. You had Trevor Murdoch and Spade. You had Eugene. You had Heinrich. Boogeyman could have easily been a U.S. champion. Like,
yeah, I think so. I mean, like, especially in that Teddy Long era of SmackDown, where it's like, you're going one-on-one with the Boogeyman, player.
That would have been a lot better.
I'm going to disagree with you here for one fundamental reason, because the Boogeyman, pretty much what he would do is he just kind of lived up to his name. Is he would just go out, eat worms, rip scabs off of girls' faces and start licking them. Just really, really gross stuff. And I just don't know if you could give me a good enough reason for why he would go from like ripping a scab off of somebody's face to wanting a championship. Like,
I mean, organically, how do you have that happen? Yeah, it's that would be difficult. But like, man, the guy was athletic as hell. He was built. Yeah. He was like, if he just wasn't the Boogeyman, he could have been a really good champion or something. You know, like even at mid-card.
I never really understood that like character.
I mean, like, no one understood the character. And like,
why it's a thing?
Huh?
Do you guys know why the Boogeyman was a thing?
Hell no.
I'm on his Wikipedia right now.
So it became a thing because CW was running a show called The Boogeyman.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And they were on CW at the time.
Oh my god, I completely forgot. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
They were partners with CW or something.
Yeah.
Struck the Boogeyman.
That's right. I completely forgot about that. I think it was like that I watched like some someone's old recording of a SmackDown episode where I saw like coming up, either like this is like some distant memory I had as a child. This is like coming up next, the Boogeyman, and I was like, oh, he's on again, the Boogeyman. I like him. I gotta see more. And there's like a different show. I'm like, well, this isn't it. So I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Kane held championships. I mean, besides tag team gold, like. I mean.
So, I looked up the Boogeyman. It says the storyline referenced to vignettes months ago as promos for a television series on the network called The Boogeyman.
Yeah.
The show was canceled before it could air, but they still had the actor under contract, so he was brought to SmackDown to wrestle The Boogeyman, then proceeded to recite a modified version of the chant, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, from the movie Nightmare on Elm Street. Before smashing an oversized alarm clock on his head.
I loved that, by the way. And I'm coming to get you. Like, I loved that whole thing, and like that weird like little staff tiki torch thing that he had going on.
Well, I remember the first vignette because it was like you had the female voice, and it was like the 1, 2, lock your doors, and it just,
This is a great.
That was a good rhyme. That was a good nursery rhyme, Cam. 1, 2, lock your doors.
3, 4, he's coming to get
Boogeyman.
5, 6.
Oh my God! Sing me to sleep with that.
It's gonna haunt my dreams tonight.
So yeah, let's
Kane. Yeah, Kane's been champion, but it was never like he beat Stone Cold in like at King of the Ring 97, 98.
How many times has Kane been world champion? Because he had it like when it was like the WCW world champion, like world heavyweight title, right?
Yeah, he was ECW champion too, I think.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
So like but like he's never had like a real motivation to win a championship, you know.
Only time was when it was mask versus title.
Right. It's like stuff like that, but like even like in the tag team scene, I never really understood Kane's motivation for a championship and why he had so many different tag team partners and how like it's so weird, you know.
The ups and downs of that character though is just, you know, like he would be a monster for a really long time, and then like they would humanize him, like he was like part of DX for like
right with X-Pac and
and then like
suck it
like, what's her face like turned on him and he became a monster again.
Oh,
Tori.
Yeah, and then like he teams with Rob Van Dam randomly, and then loses his mask and becomes a monster again.
That's when he held the World Heavyweight Championship, when he was that, and when he was like
he was the bald
the See No Evil Kane.
Yeah. The See No Evil Kane.
Remember that match with him and Khali? Was it with like when he brought the hook? It was at a WrestleMania, wasn't it?
Do you remember when Gallows was like the fake Kane?
Yeah. I remember
they were
that.
like referencing that movie. Like there was like a date. It was like May
19th.
Yeah, May 19th. And like they never paid it off.
Like,
that's another thing. Like they'll have these like monster like storylines with like no ending, and they just like write it off.
I mean, that was like kind of like the what was it, the House of Horrors match with Bray and Randy. It's like that was awful, no payoff.
All that was included in the House of Horrors was that the ring occasionally showed a bunch of bugs.
It was very
It was just like the House of Horrors was just like any like any like crack house around here, basically.
Yeah, that was like their first like cinematic thing.
Right. Yeah.
If they'd have done it like nowadays, like if they would have done something like that now, they would have found a way better way of doing it. But like, but at the time, it was like, this is.
Speaking of like cinematic matches and like, I mean like Do you think this is gonna be kind of off topic? I mean, any of these round table discussions are bound to go off topic, but like.
Boys, you guys are gonna hear a thud. Hang on.
Oh, you okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
All right, I'm a little worried, but we're just gonna ignore it.
we're gonna steamroll right past that. And do you think if it weren't for like the final deletion, do you think any of these like cinematic matches would have even like been happening for one or two as good as they have been in like WWE? Like the Boneyard match. Do you think if it weren't for like the final deletion of like Broken Matt and Jeff, you know, like having such a good cinematic match and Impact, like would the Boneyard match even be a thing? You know, it's like doing like these offset, like low, like off locale matches. Like
They did that with, so like WWE's first version of that would be like the Randy and Bray, and then the Bray and Matt, right? Then they do.
Yeah, I think so. But I don't think it was on the Hardy compound. I think it was like on the Wyatt compound. Well, didn't they do that with the Wyatt family and New Day? The Wyatt compound? They? Yeah. I remember that because the New Day like wrestled in jeans and shit.
What's that?
The Wyatt family versus New Day feud. It was like the Wyatt compound.
Oh yeah, that was.
Yeah, New Day and the Wyatts brawl at the Wyatt family compound. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like, I mean, definitely the final deletion like sparked that like new realm. Well, what about like Lucha Underground? Because they didn't do cinematic wrestling, but like their vignettes.
They weren't as cinematic, but they kind of did like a blend.
But like their vignettes and stuff, like were like watching movies.
Yeah, they were very cinematic, but like yeah.
That's what gave us like Pentagon. That it gave us, you know, Brian Cage, Ray Phoenix, Luchasaurus was good in that too. It really helped with the whole cinematic of wrestling. Yeah.
So, but I think like the final deletion definitely has a huge part to play in that because like,
oh, hands down.
Right, and like, can't we make a kind of case where it's like basically all these monster supernatural characters? It's all cinematic if you think about it.
Yeah,
they all have like ties to like outside cinema. And that's what wrestling is in its own form. It's a form of entertainment, you know. It's pro wrestling is at its core entertainment, and so is like, you know, like all of these like horror gimmicks. You know, it's for entertainment. It's for shock factor. It's all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, I personally think now that I guess the door is opened for, you know, WWE and more mainstream wrestling to utilize these like cinematics more for matches. Mm-hmm. I definitely think they should do it more for a lot of their like monster supernatural characters.
Yeah,
because
so.
it works so well for the Undertaker's Boneyard match. It was
masterpiece.
The whole time I was like talking about how stupid it was going to be, and then it was like
it was awesome.
I was all in from the very start. Yeah.
As soon as, like, you know, like, AJ popped out of the casket and Undertaker was, like, riding down on the motorcycle.
Yeah, like, Metallica's playing in the...
Yeah.
in the background, you're like, okay, like...
Oh, like, I'm sold, like, yeah.
And then, like, the ghouls come out of the...
Yeah, the druids.
It's like, what?
Yeah, I was like... And in a way, like, that was... If anything, that was just, like, metaphorical. In a way, like... It's like Undertaker, like, kind of burying his past in a way.
Yeah.
The kind of like, all right, yeah, the druids were kind of weird, but let me just decimate them.
Yeah, like that. Like I feel like that old man Taker should have been like his character for the past like
few years, at
10
least.
10 years,
yeah,
probably.
Yeah,
like
where he's the like, Mark Calloway Taker.
He's basically just like this old, worn out wrestler.
I think like, after the loss against Lesnar, that should have been when he should have turned to that.
For sure.
I mean, like, I think after you get absolutely squashed by Lesnar, I feel like you kind of lose that mystique a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
he decimated that character. You know, like
yeah, and that's the issue with a lot of those monster characters. Like once they lose, it's like, well, now what do you do with it?
right. It's like you build him up as a dominant force, and it's like, well, Abaddon. In Abaddon's case, she already lost to Sheeta.
Yeah.
So she already has her first match in AEW. She lost.
So like that just shows like it already seems like her push isn't really.
Well, was that on AEW Dark though?
It was on Dark, but it still counts for the record.
Yeah, it's still gonna be like the win-loss thing.
So it's like she already has a loss within AEW.
I guess this brings up another point: is for them to feel like a dominant force, do they have to be undefeated?
I mean, I feel like booking someone as undefeated is just it's a recipe for disaster. Because as soon as they lose all of their momentum.
Yeah.
It's if you have someone go undefeated for a very long time, like take like Goldberg or Asuka and Rusev for like all of those examples. Asuka went in with like a very dominant undefeated record. She got beat by Charlotte, and ever since then it's kind of it's been kind of iffy on Asuka.
Yeah.
Rusev went in like it's basically undefeated, right? And like from NXT into the main roster, loses to John Cena, all momentum gone. You know.
Bray.
Yeah, Bray Wyatt too, like going.
He was undefeated and then Cena beat him at Mania, right?
Yeah. Man, Cena, that's a whole different thing. but yeah.
I think in most cases, like that's the role of the monster, though. It's like they're gonna be really strong, and then they face like the top baby face. Right. Like that was Hogan's whole career.
Yeah,
was just fighting monsters. Like,
and yeah, in some way that's like the nature of the beast in a way, where it's just like it's self-fulfilling prophecy. You're gonna have a monster. The monster's gonna be undefeated for a while. Feed a bunch of like local talent and or like kind of
or
just,
the
like,
old
lower
monster
mid-card.
that is no longer a monster anymore.
Right. You feed that into the monster character. You make that monster look good for a bit, and then you have like your top baby face go over the monster, and then you kind of cement them as a baby face.
Yeah. I mean, that even like applies to like most of like the big guys. Like King Kong Bundy was just a big guy for Hogan to beat. The Big Boss Man was just a big guy for Hogan to beat.
Yeah, a lot of giants fall under this category too. So I guess it's okay to talk about them. Where it's just like push them until like Big Show too. I mean, like push them as like this unstoppable force or like the immovable object kind of thing, and it's like
and not just, until he faces babyface number 1.
Yeah, and then it's, there it goes. All momentum is just gone off the cliff. It's like they're just a motorcycle just running right off the cliff. All their momentum just rockets, and then it's gone like immediately. So. Well, we're about out of time here. Does anyone else have anything to add or say? Something they didn't want to say, like, or they didn't have the chance to say, or?
No, my enemy and like basically.
Yeah, I think I've exhausted the topic.
Yeah, I feel like if we take this any further, I think we're just padding for time at that point.
Yeah. Other than Abaddon, who else in AEW would you consider the Dark Order a monster?
No, they're just kind of culty and weird, I would say. They're not so much like monster.
I don't think they have any. There's no real magic. It's more just like.
It's really like Brody
weird stuff.
Yeah, it's just weird to be the same. Like it was kind of like the Nightmare Collective when that didn't work. You tried to have like 2 cult gimmicks go on at the same time.
Yeah, that was. They threw that one out the window really fast.
I mean, good on them. I mean, rightfully so. Like,
I really
cult gimmicks at the same time.
The Brody Lee trying to like brainwash Colt Cabana.
Yeah, that really works.
Because
I think it's interesting.
Because like Colt Cabana has always been like a comedic like wrestler. Like if we get like the serious side of him brought out from Mr. Brody Lee.
Yeah, it's actually it's really interesting, and like it would kind of like reinvent Colt Cabana in a way.
Yeah.
I think like change his name to CULT, like Colt Cabana.
I think I made that joke the other night.
That should just be their stable name, just him and Brody Lee is Colt Cabana.
Oh God.
I would I would really dig that. Like it would be silly, but also it'd be really fun. It'd be really cool. All right. Well, huge thank you to Nate and Eric. They will be regular occurrences, regular guests on the HarshBros show. I've been Noah. This has been Cam. Say something, Cam, so that way people know. Hola, he says. All right. But this has been the HarshBros show, the wrestling podcast, and we'll see you next time.